Here's a number that should make you stop for a second. According to FEMA, the average American household has less than 3 days of emergency supplies on hand. 3 days. And yet the average major power outage in the United States lasts between 1 and 4 days, meaning half of all Americans are already living right at the edge of what they have. But here's what nobody tells you. The household items you should hoard immediately are not in a survival store. They're not in a tactical catalog. They're in the aisle you walked past last Tuesday without giving it a second look. The unglamorous stuff. The boring stuff. The things you already have one of somewhere in your house right now, but have never thought of as emergency gear. And that's exactly the point. When the power goes out, when the water stops running, when supply chains hiccup the way they've done more than a few times in recent years, nobody is running to the survival shop. They're scrambling for the basics. And the basics run out fast. You saw it during COVID when cleaning supplies disappeared overnight. You saw it during every major hurricane season when store shelves in affected areas were stripped within hours. The pattern is always the same. People wait. Then people panic. So, today we're walking through 18 completely normal, inexpensive household items that deserve a permanent spot in your supplies. Not because the world is ending, but because disruptions happen. And the gap between comfortable and miserable usually comes down to whether you had the foresight to grab an extra bottle of something that costs. Here's the rule I want you to apply to everything on this list. Each item earns its place by having at least 3 distinct uses beyond its obvious purpose. That's the real test of a good prep item, not how tactical it looks, but how many problems it solves when things get difficult. When you start seeing ordinary items through that lens, your entire house becomes a supply closet. One more thing before we get into it. Stick around to the end because the last 3 items are the ones that most preparedness channels, including some of the biggest ones, and they might be the most important on the entire list. Let's get into it. Number 1. Unscented household bleach. This is arguably the single most versatile emergency item you can own, and it costs about $4 a gallon. The keyword there is unscented, no color safe, no splashless, no added fragrance, nothing fancy. Just plain sodium hypochlorite at 6 to 8% concentration. Check the label for that percentage before you buy. Most people know bleach cleans surfaces. Far fewer people know what the EPA actually says about it. According to EPA emergency water disinfection guidance, and this is official verified guidance, just 6 to 8 drops of regular unscented bleach per gallon of water. 6 drops. 30 minutes of wait time. Drinkable water. Here's the catch, and this matters. Bleach has a shelf life. The active ingredient degrades at roughly 20% per year, even in an unopened bottle. A bottle that has been sitting under your sink for 2 years is not going to be nearly as effective as a fresh one. The move here is simple. Buy a new bottle every 6 months and use the old one for regular cleaning. You're always rotating through fresh stock. You never waste anything. If you want a genuinely long-term solution, look into calcium hypochlorite, granular pool shock. It stores for up to 10 years and can be mixed into a purification solution whenever you need it. One 1-pound bag treats up to 10,000 gallons of water. 10,000? You can pick it up at any pool supply store for a few bucks. Just make sure it's 68% calcium hypochlorite or higher, with no added algicides or clarifiers. Water is covered. But what about keeping things clean without running water at all? Number 2. Heavy-duty contractor trash bags. Not the thin kitchen bags. The thick black contractor-grade bags, 55-gallon 6mm thickness if you can find them. These are a completely different product from what most people buy, and the difference matters in ways that only become obvious when you actually need them. During Hurricane Harvey in 2017, people were wrapping their valuables in plastic bags because it was the only waterproofing they had. The ones with thin kitchen bags lost belongings. The ones with contractor bags did not. At 6mm thickness, these bags hold up to physical stress that would tear a standard kitchen bag apart in seconds. But here's where it gets interesting. Cut a hole in the top and 2 on the sides, and you've got a functional rain poncho. Use about 8 inches down from the top for the neck hole, and make the armholes roughly 10 inches from the sides. Stuff one with crumpled newspaper, and you've got an insulating layer or a makeshift mattress pad. Line a 5-gallon bucket with one, and you've got an emergency toilet, which becomes a genuine sanitation concern faster than most people think when water stops flowing. Lay one flat and it becomes a ground cover, a vapor barrier, or a rainwater collection surface. A box of 20 contractor bags runs about $15 and takes up less space than a shoebox. And here's something to hold on to. When we get to items 4 and 11, you'll see how these bags connect with two other items on this list in a way that creates a completely self-contained emergency system. Stay with me on that. Number 3. Baking soda. In an extended emergency, the thing that makes people sick is almost never hunger. It's poor sanitation. That's the uncomfortable truth about what the first 72 hours of a real disruption actually looks like. Hunger kicks in later. Illness from dirty surfaces, contaminated hands, and compromised waste management kicks in fast. Baking soda is your frontline sanitation tool. It cleans surfaces without requiring running water. It deodorizes everything from portable toilets to gear bags to shoes. It puts out small grease fires. It works as a mild toothpaste substitute combined with a pinch of salt. It soothes insect bites and minor sunburns when mixed with a little water into a paste. And in a limited resource cooking environment, that same water paste takes grime off cookware without needing to rinse. The baking soda I'm talking about is not some specialized product. It's the $1 box in every grocery store baking aisle. The difference between most people and a prepared person on this item is simply quantity. Most people have one box. You need 6. 6 boxes cost under $7 total, takes up about half a shelf, and gives you enough cleaning material to run a field sanitation station for weeks. Baking soda stores indefinitely in a sealed container. There is no reason to have less than 6 boxes somewhere in your house. Number 4. White vinegar. A gallon of white vinegar costs about $3 and has a shelf life that outlasts your mortgage. The acetic acid content, typically around 5%, is what makes it both a cleaning agent and a preservation tool. Acid inhibits bacterial and mold growth, which is why vinegar has been used for food preservation long before refrigeration existed. Most people use vinegar for cleaning glass and descaling their coffee maker. That's fine. But in an emergency context, the most underused application is as a produce wash. Mix 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water, rinse your fresh vegetables in it, and you extend their viable shelf life by 2 to 3 days in a room temperature environment. In a grid-down scenario where you're trying to use perishables before they go bad, that 2 or 3 extra days matters. Vinegar also acts as a natural fabric softener for hand-washing clothes, cuts grease off cooking surfaces, kills many common bacteria on contact, and can be used in food preservation through basic pickling of vegetables. A 1-to-1 mix with water in a spray bottle handles about 80% of household surface cleaning tasks without any commercial products. 3 gallons. That's what I recommend keeping on hand. It costs $9, stores on a shelf, and never goes bad. Number 5. Duct tape. You knew this was coming, and for good reason. Duct tape is the closest thing to a universal repair tool in any emergency kit. Seal a leaking pipe temporarily. Patch a tarp. Repair a torn shelter. Improvise a bandage closure when you don't have butterfly strips. Mark a trail. Create a clothesline. Reseal food packaging. Close a cracked window frame against drafts. These are not theoretical applications, they're documented uses from actual disaster response situations. The catch is quality. The cheap dollar store rolls dry out, don't adhere properly, and fail when you actually need them. Buy a name brand roll or Gorilla Tape. 1 good roll is worth 5 bad ones, and according to manufacturer specifications, Gorilla Tape has significantly higher peel adhesion than standard duct tape. Here's a storage tip that changes how useful this item actually is. Wrap about 20 feet of duct tape tightly around an old gift card or a pencil. You now have a flat, compact roll that fits in a wallet, a glove box, a go bag, or a kitchen drawer without taking up any real space. Keep one in your car. Keep one in your bag. Keep one in your junk drawer. 3 flat wraps. 20 feet each. They weigh almost nothing and solve more small problems than any other item this size. 3 rolls minimum. Buy them now and put one in each location. Number 6. Aluminum foil. People think of foil as a kitchen convenience. It is also a heat management tool, a signaling device, a cooking vessel, and an insulator, and those applications have been used in off-grid cabins and emergency situations for over 40 years. Here's the physics behind it. Aluminum foil reflects up to 97% of radiant heat, according to Department of Energy Building Science data. That number is not a marketing claim, it's the reason reflective insulation is used in commercial buildings. In a winter power outage, placing foil on the inside of your windows reflects body heat and any heat from candles or a small fire back into the room instead of letting it bleed out through the glass. In summer, foil on the outside of the glass reflects incoming sunlight and keeps a room measurably cooler. A single roll of heavy-duty foil covers roughly 75 square feet. That's enough to line 6 standard windows. It costs about $5. You can shape it into a crude cooking vessel over coals. You can use it as a makeshift funnel. You can sharpen dull scissors by cutting through several folded layers. And in direct sunlight, a flat sheet of foil is visible to aircraft from a significant distance. Keep 2 rolls of heavy-duty foil in your supplies. Standard foil works for most of these tasks, but the heavy-duty version holds up better for anything structural. Stop. Before we go any further, here's the one rule that changes how you use every item on this list. 2 is 1. 1 is none. Every single item I've covered so far should exist in your home in at least 2 quantities or 2 locations. 1 bottle of bleach that gets knocked over and spills is 0 bottles of bleach when you need it. 1 roll of duct tape that's in the car when you need it at home is 0 rolls of duct tape. The preparedness community has used this phrase for decades because it's simply true. As we go through the next 12 items, I'm going to give you a specific minimum quantity for each one. That's the difference between reading a preparedness list and actually being ready. Knowing what to buy is step 1. Knowing how much is what separates prepared from underprepared. Keep that in your head. Let's continue. Number 7. Salt. For most of human history, salt was literally used as currency. Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in salt. The word salary comes from the Latin salarium, meaning salt payment. That's not a metaphor or a colorful trivia fact. That's a record of how economically irreplaceable this mineral was to every civilization that ever existed. It has not become less useful since then. Salt preserves food through osmosis, drawing moisture out of bacterial cells and creating an environment where they cannot survive. It's one of the oldest preservation techniques in human history, and it still works. It's also an essential electrolyte your body cannot produce, critical during illness, exertion, or hot weather. You can use it to clean wounds with a saline rinse. You can gargle with warm salt water to reduce the pain and bacterial load of a sore throat. You can mix it with baking soda and a little water for a functional toothpaste. Here's what most people get wrong. They only keep iodized table salt. For daily cooking and health, iodized salt is fine. For food preservation, curing meat, brining vegetables, fermenting, non-iodized canning salt or kosher salt, iodine can cause discoloration in preserved foods and an off flavor in fermented products. Have both. A 25-pound bag of non-iodized canning salt costs $8 to $12 at any warehouse store and contains enough material to cure approximately 100 pounds of meat using standard ratios. Salt never expires, never goes bad. Keep a 25-pound bag and never think about it again. Number 8. Honey. In 2015, archaeologists working in Egyptian tombs found sealed honey pots estimated at 3,000 years old. Lab testing confirmed the honey was still edible. Not still technically food. Still edible. That is the most extreme shelf life demonstration in food history. The reason honey doesn't spoil is chemistry, not mystery. Honey has a water activity level below 0.6. Bacteria need a water activity of at least 0.91 to survive and reproduce. Honey also produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide through an enzymatic reaction. Combined, these properties create an environment where microbial growth is essentially impossible as long as the honey stays sealed and dry. Beyond indefinite shelf life, honey has documented medical applications that hold up to modern scrutiny. A Cochrane systematic review, the highest tier of evidence in clinical research, found that honey dressings reduced infection rates in minor burns and superficial wounds compared to standard dressings. That's why honey has been used as a wound treatment across cultures for thousands of years, and why modern combat medicine has revisited it as a field dressing in resource-limited environments. A single 32-ounce jar of raw honey contains approximately 2,400 calories. It sweetens food when morale is low. It soothes coughs better than most over-the-counter suppressants, according to multiple peer-reviewed comparisons. It treats wounds. It lasts forever. Buy raw, unfiltered honey. Read the label. If it says honey blend or honey flavored, it has none of these properties. Look for a label that says 100% pure honey or raw honey. One large jar, kept in a cool, dark place, will outlast everything else on this shelf. If it crystallizes, that's normal. That's actually a sign it's real honey. Set the jar in warm water and it liquefies right back. Number 9. Isopropyl alcohol at 70%. Most people reach for the highest percentage they can find because higher sounds better. This is the wrong instinct, and the reason is counterintuitive enough that it's worth taking 30 seconds to understand. According to CDC disinfection guidance, 70% concentration isopropyl alcohol is more effective as a surface and skin disinfectant than 91%. The reason is the water content. The water in the 70% solution slows evaporation, giving the alcohol more contact time with bacterial cell walls and improving penetration. The 91% solution evaporates too quickly to complete the job. Higher concentration is not always more effective. Keep that in mind as a general principle. It applies here and it applies to bleach concentration as well. Isopropyl alcohol also cleans electronics safely when applied with a cotton swab and allowed to fully dry. It removes adhesive residue from surfaces. It functions as a degreaser. And in a controlled outdoor setting with proper ventilation, it can be used as a fire accelerant to get difficult start fires going. A 32-ounce bottle of 70% isopropyl costs about $3 to $4 and contains the equivalent of approximately 640 disinfecting swabs worth of material. Now, the next 3 items on this list share a connection that most people never notice when they see them separately. Once you see it, you'll understand why I've grouped them this way. Number 10. Ziploc bags in multiple sizes. Preparedness is not just about having the right stuff. It's about being able to find the right stuff when you need it fast. And the single biggest difference between a functional emergency kit and a useless pile of gear is organization. Ziploc bags are the organizational system. Gallon bags, quart bags, snack bags. These are 3 different tools. Gallon bags hold documents, first aid supplies, fire-starting materials, electronics you need to keep dry, and short-term water storage in an emergency. Quart bags hold medications, spice portions, individual fire-starting kits, batteries organized by type. Snack bags hold matches, pills, spare screws, individual fishing components, small survival tools. Here's a specific application that nobody talks about. You can build a complete fire and sanitation mini kit inside a single-gallon Ziploc bag for about 50 cents. 10 waterproof matches, 2 petroleum jelly cotton balls, which will cover in a minute, a salt packet, a folded square of foil, and 2 safety pins. That's a fire starter, a disinfection tool, a signaling surface, and emergency cordage, all in one sealed waterproof package the size of your hand. 50 cents. You can make 20 of these and distribute them everywhere. Buy the name brand bags. The off-brand ones pop open at the worst possible moment, which defeats the entire point. A 50-count box of gallon Ziplocs costs about $7. You need them in all 3 sizes. Number 11. Vaseline. This is one of those items that sits in medicine cabinets for years until you actually need it, and then you realize it does 4 times more than you thought it did. Petroleum jelly protects skin from windburn and cold. It prevents chafing during hard physical work. It treats dry, cracked skin and minor cuts. These are the uses everyone knows. Here's the one almost nobody does. Take a cotton ball. Press it into petroleum jelly until the fibers are saturated, not just coated on the surface, but fully soaked through. That cotton ball will burn steadily for 4 to 5 minutes with a strong, wind-resistant flame. That's enough time to get kindling going even in damp conditions. It is one of the most effective improvised fire starters that exists, and you have had the materials sitting in your bathroom your entire life. The technique matters. Surface coating only burns for 30 to 60 seconds. Full fiber saturation is what gives you the 4 to 5 minute burn time. Make 20 of these at once. Store them in a quart Ziploc bag. They cost about 40 cents in materials and provide 80 to 100 minutes of combined burn time. People spend $15 or $20 on commercial fire starters when the better version was already in their house. Now, before we go to item 12, I want to pause on something that almost no preparedness content addresses. Because the items we've covered so far handle physical problems. What happens to you psychologically in an extended emergency is just as real as those physical problems, and it's almost completely ignored. Here's what FEMA's own disaster response literature acknowledges that most preparedness channels skip entirely. After 72 hours without power, without normal routines, without the sensory environment you're used to, psychological deterioration is a documented phenomenon. It's not weakness. It's physiology. The things that keep morale functional, a familiar taste, a source of warmth, a consistent routine. FEMA's community resilience research specifically identifies emotional stability as a survival factor in extended emergencies. 2 items coming up on this list pull double duty. They're practical tools and psychological anchors at the same time. I'll flag them when we get there. Because staying calm and thinking clearly is not optional in an emergency. It is the skill that makes every other item on this list more useful. Number 12. Dental floss. A standard spool of Oral-B dental floss contains 54.6 yards of nylon monofilament cordage. That's 163 feet. It weighs less than 2 ounces. It costs under $2. And you can buy it at any gas station in the country if you don't have it on hand. Nylon monofilament, the same base material as fishing line, has a tensile strength of roughly 3 to 10 pounds per strand depending on brand and diameter. That's enough to hang lightweight items on an improvised line, repair a torn seam in clothing, bind a splint, secure a tarp edge, or use as actual fishing line in a genuine survival situation. Here's where it gets more useful. Braid 3 strands of dental floss together, and you've tripled the effective tensile strength with materials that still fit in your pocket. Combine a bent safety pin, item 14 on this list, with a length of braided dental floss, and you have a functional fishing rig for under $3 in combined materials. A single roll of dental floss is 163 feet of cordage, a repair tool, fishing line, and binding material for under $2. Put 2 extra rolls in your supplies. At that price point, there's no argument against it. Number 13. Tea light candles. 100 tea lights. $8 to $10. Each candle burns 4 to 5 hours. Do the math. That's 400 to 500 hours of light from a single bag that costs less than a fast food meal. During a 2-week power outage, burning 4 candles per evening gives you 5 hours of light per night, and that one bag lasts over 3 months of nightly use. Beyond light, a single candle generates approximately 80 BTUs of heat per hour, roughly equivalent to the warmth output of a 25-watt bulb. That's not enough to heat a living room. But in a small bathroom with the door closed, it takes the edge off. Here's a technique that's been used in off-grid homesteading for decades. Place a lit tea light inside a ceramic mug, then invert a slightly larger ceramic pot over it, with the drainage hole facing up. The pot absorbs and radiates heat more effectively than the open flame. Users have reported temperature increases of 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit in small enclosed spaces with this setup. These are the items I flagged as psychological anchors. A warm lit room feels survivable in a way that darkness doesn't. Cost 2 cents per hour. Buy the unscented ones. Fragrance oils in scented candles can cause headaches and nausea in enclosed spaces during extended use, exactly the opposite of what you need. And use a stable surface. Keep them away from anything flammable, and never leave them unattended. Number 14. Safety pins. This one is almost embarrassingly simple. But here's the framing that makes it make sense. 0 safety pins means 0 options when something tears, breaks, or needs securing in the middle of an emergency. 10 safety pins means approximately 20 options. That's the real currency of preparedness, not gear, but options. And safety pins are the highest utility per gram item on this entire list. They were standard issue in Second World War field kits for exactly this reason. Military kit designers in the 1940s went through rigorous weight and utility analysis, and safety pins made the cut every single time because they solved more small problems per gram. Pin a blanket into a temporary poncho. Secure a bandage when you've run out of medical tape. Fix a broken zipper pull. Fashion a fishhook with a bent large pin. Attach critical small items to your jacket so they don't get lost. Mark a trail by pinning bright fabric strips to branches. An assorted 50-count pack, small, medium, and large sizes, costs $2 to $3 and weighs 1.2 ounces. Distribute them. Some in the first aid kit. Some in your car's glove box. Some in a coat pocket. Some in your go bag. They are so small and so cheap that having them everywhere is the correct decision. The last three items are coming up. I almost left them off. They seem obvious. And that's exactly why most people skip them. Number 15. Plastic wrap cling film. This is the only item on this list that appears in official emergency medicine protocols. UK National Health Service first aid guidelines specifically recommend cling film as a first-line burn dressing. The reasons are exactly what you'd expect once you hear them. It comes off the roll sterile. It doesn't adhere to the wound surface the way gauze or fabric would. It reduces evaporative cooling from the burn site, and it creates a barrier against contamination until proper medical care is available. In a scenario where you're 60 minutes from a hospital and someone in your household has a serious burn, what you do in those first minutes matters. Plastic wrap gives you a legitimate medical intervention that costs $2 and lives in your kitchen drawer. Beyond first aid, plastic wrap insulates windows when you layer it across the glass and seal the edges with duct tape, creating a dead air space that significantly reduces drafts and radiant heat loss. That connects items 5, 6, and 15 into a 3-part window insulation system that costs under $15 total to deploy. A 200 square foot roll costs about $3 and contains enough material for approximately 40 burn dressings using the 2-layer method recommended in NHS guidance. Put a roll in your first aid kit now. Number 16. Over-the-counter medications, aspirin, Imodium, and antihistamine. This is the item that almost never shows up on preparedness lists. And it should probably be closer to number 1. Here's why. In a grid down or extended disruption scenario, the most dangerous medical events are not dramatic injuries. They're the ordinary ones: diarrhea that causes dehydration, fever that spikes in a child, an allergic reaction that escalates. A single episode of severe diarrhea in an adult can cause dangerous dehydration within 24 to 48 hours without treatment. One $6 box of Imodium, loperamide, prevents that. The World Health Organization includes loperamide on its essential medicines list specifically because it's that critical in resource-limited settings. Aspirin addresses pain, fever, and critically is the first-line intervention for suspected heart attack when emergency services are unavailable. Antihistamine addresses allergic reactions before they escalate. Together, these 3 over-the-counter medications cover the majority of non-traumatic emergency medical events you're likely to face in a 72-hour disruption. The cost for a 3-month minimum supply of all 3, under $25 at any pharmacy or dollar store. Store each in a separate labeled quart, Ziploc bag with the full dosing instructions from the package insert. Write the rotation date on the bag with a marker. Replace every 2 years minimum. Nobody builds an emergency food supply and then neglects medication. Start with these 3. Number 17. Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. Rice stored in a plastic bin lasts 2 to 5 years under ideal conditions. Rice sealed in a 1-gallon Mylar bag with a 300cc oxygen absorber lasts 25 to 30 years. The same food. The same rice. The difference is $15 worth of bags from Walmart or Amazon. Mylar, technically biaxially oriented polyethylene terephthalate, has an oxygen transmission rate close to 0. Combined with an iron-based oxygen absorber that consumes the remaining oxygen inside the sealed bag, you create an anaerobic, zero-moisture environment where oxidation, pest infestation, and bacterial growth are essentially impossible. This is backed by USDA Food Storage Research and Extension Service data from Utah State University. The process is simple. Fill the bag. Drop in a 300cc oxygen absorber. Seal the top with a standard household clothes iron set to the cotton or linen setting. Run it along the top edge for 3 to 4 seconds. Label the bag with contents and date. A kit of 51-gallon Mylar bags plus 100 oxygen absorbers costs $15 to $20 and can preserve up to 100 pounds of dry goods, rice, oats, lentils, pasta, wheat for decades. That's a 25-year food insurance policy for under $20. This is the item that turns your existing pantry from a short-term supply into a long-term asset. You've already bought the food. Now protect it properly. Number 18. A hand crank or battery-powered emergency radio. FEMA research on disaster response consistently identifies the first 72 hours as the most dangerous phase of any major emergency, not because supplies have run out, but because people are making decisions without information. Do you shelter in place or evacuate? Is the water safe? Where are emergency services? Without information, even the best supplied household makes catastrophic decisions. An emergency radio costs $20 to $30 and changes that entirely. NOAA's Weather Radio All Hazards Network broadcasts emergency alerts around the clock across more than 1,000 transmitters. It does not require cell service. It does not require Wi-Fi. During Hurricane Katrina, the FCC documented that 38 of 41 cell towers in the primary impact zone failed within 3 hours of landfall. Emergency radio remained the primary information source for first responders and civilians for the first 72+ hours. Your phone will die. Cell towers will fail. The radio keeps working. 2 consistently recommended options at the budget end: the Midland ER3110 at around $30 and the Kaido K500 at around $25. Both have NOAA reception, solar charging capability, hand crank power backup, and a USB port to charge your phone. Both are available at most big box retailers or online. Information is a survival tool. And this is the cheapest one on this list. So those are 18 items. Let's talk about what all of them actually represent. Not one of these costs more than $30. Not one requires special storage beyond keeping it dry and cool. Not one would look out of place in any normal household. You don't need a bunker. You don't need a dedicated prep room. You don't need to spend $1,000 in a weekend. A single shelf in a hall closet handles this entire list with room to spare. The total cost to acquire everything on this list, at minimum recommended quantities, runs roughly $100 to $120. That's one nice dinner out. One impulse purchase you won't remember making in 6 months. In exchange, you get a household that can handle a 72-hour disruption without scrambling, a week-long outage without panic, and in some cases with the Mylar bags and the radio, a decade-long baseline of security that quietly sits there and never asks anything of you. The 2-is-1 rule applies to the entire list. 1 of everything is a starting point. 2 of everything is a plan. Here's what most people do. They watch a video like this. They nod along, they think, yeah, I should do that, and then they don't do anything. That's not preparedness. That's entertainment. The difference between the person who watched this video and the person who benefits from it is 1 trip to a grocery store. If you watch this and you're thinking about where to start with salt, bleach, and the contractor bags. Those 3 items cover water, sanitation, and physical shelter basics for under $25. That's your first shelf. Everything else builds from there. If you want to go further, and I'd encourage it, the next video covers exactly how to build a full 90-day food supply using these items as the foundation, including storage strategies that work in a studio apartment and meal plans that require 0 electricity to prepare. That video goes live next week. Drop a 1 in the comments right now if you already have at least 5 of these items in your house. And drop a 2 if you're starting from scratch. I read every comment, and the folks starting from scratch I want to hear from specifically because there are a few additional items that make the most sense to pick up first. If this was useful to you, consider subscribing. This channel publishes practical, non-alarmist preparedness content on a weekly schedule, and the next few videos are going to be genuinely different from anything else in this space. You don't need to do all of this at once. You just need to start. And you've already started because now you know exactly what to look for. The rest is just a trip to the store,